Have you ever wondered what it's like to sell a vehicle on seller finance? Or maybe if you're a buyer and you're looking for a vehicle to buy on Creative Finance, this video is for you. Chip, my little Shih Tzu, he's just a little guest appearance for the moment. We are selling this vehicle because our family has outgrown it. So maybe you're a seller that's looking to sell your vehicle and you're like, how do I do the paperwork? How do I offload a vehicle at top dollar by giving my buyer Creative Finance terms? Well, couple of things. I want to give you guys some amazing things in this video. One, we're going to have Molly Tennant, who is my transaction coordinator. She's my head of operations. She's going to be doing the paperwork. We're going to be giving that paperwork away to you guys down in the description below. So if you need the paperwork for doing this, description down below. If you want to learn how to be a transaction coordinator and do these types of transactions and learn how to make money, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or you want to make a couple $100,000 a year, full-time income, our transaction coordinators that learn through top tier TC, they can make a lot of money doing this for people like myself. Not just cars, but also businesses, and all of my real estate transactions are done by a top tier certified transaction coordinator. Molly is in charge of that community. So go down below if you guys want to learn how to do that. Molly does coach on how to make this possible. Angelo, my buyer, is buying this vehicle from me. So today he's going to give you a checklist of what to do as a buyer. Check this out. This is a 2017 Tesla Model X, pristine condition. It's the P100D model. So it has like ludicrous mode. It goes up, I don't know, 0 to 60 in like 2.1 seconds. It's crazy. Why am I selling it? I'm selling it because we've outgrown it. My wife moved to an Escalade to carry more people. We have a brand new baby coming in about 4 weeks. And so this vehicle doesn't make sense for us anymore. So I could sell this on the open market for 55 grand. I'd probably get somebody to offer me 51,000. So I'd get 51 grand. But what I'm doing is I'm selling it to Angelo for $60,000 by giving him really favorable terms. And so I'm letting him take over my $35,000 mortgage or car loan, not a mortgage. And then he's gonna pay the remaining balance of $25,000 through payments to me directly. So we're gonna structure that today. Molly's gonna give you a checklist. Angelo's gonna give you a checklist. Do a couple things for me. Before we get into the video, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe. Guys, we do a lot of work to change the industry. We come up with this paperwork. The paperwork we're gonna give you down in the description below probably cost me $3,000 to have an actual attorney put this together. If that $3,000 means anything to you, please hit the subscribe button, share this with somebody else, share this with a friend, get the algorithm to give us some love, and make a comment down below and tell Eric, thank you for carrying this damn camera all the time in 105-degree weather when it's hot and he's sweating, okay? So again, you wanna become a transaction coordinator, go to toptiertc.com or link down below. If you guys want the paperwork, go down below. And Angelo, the buyer, I'll also put his information down below. You can follow him on YouTube and look at his Instagram, become friends with him, and ask him questions about his Turo business, which is where this car is gonna go. So let's go get into the video.
What's up, guys? I'm Molly Tennant. I'm Pace Morby's operations manager. I'm also the person in charge of all the paperwork when it comes to doing things like what we're talking about today. We're gonna talk about Pace selling his Tesla Model X on seller finance terms with an underlying loan in place. So usually people like to call this Subto. It's not really Subto. It's more so just taking over payments. We have a student who calls it the TOP method, taking over payments. And we're gonna talk about how you, as a seller or a buyer, can work through that process. You can work with a top tier trained certified TC, or you can do it yourself, and we're gonna give away that paperwork to you today. So to start out, if you're a seller, maybe you're somebody looking to buy a vehicle, you wanna know what terms you're looking for. So you're gonna negotiate those terms between buyer and seller, and I will tell you, you wanna make sure those are better terms than if you were gonna go sell that vehicle to a dealership or on the traditional market where they're gonna pay off that loan. That's mainly why people do this, right? They wanna make more money on the vehicle than they would if they were to go trade it in or sell it traditionally. So after you've negotiated your terms, and that's your role, that's not gonna be a TC role. I'll go over the TC roles in a minute. After you figure out your terms, you're gonna figure out how to find those reports and inspections, whether you're gonna use Carfax or whether you're gonna send somebody to look at the vehicle, maybe a mechanic in that area. You can do either or. Now, Angelo's here sitting with me. So Angelo, what is important to you when you're buying a vehicle for Turo purposes?
Yeah, so the first thing I look at when purchasing a vehicle for Turo is making sure it falls within the parameters. It has to be within the last 12 years. So currently nothing more than 2011, and it has to have less than 130,000 miles. It also has to have a clean title. So the Carfax is where I start, making sure it is a clean title, it's not rebranded or salvaged, checking the report for any previous accidents. Sometimes an accident can be pretty minor, so it might just be cosmetic, but the insurance has to report it that way. Sometimes, you know, an accident can be something major, damaged frames, etc. So if you see something like that on there, you definitely want to ask some more questions and find out, you know, why it's showing up on the Carfax report.
And so when you get inspections, are you usually sending a mechanic? Are you going to look at it yourself? You feel like you're pretty mechanically inclined to tell?
Personally, I feel like I'm pretty mechanically inclined, so I can take a look at a car and know within a few minutes, you know, what needs to be fixed or whatnot. But definitely, if you don't feel like you're mechanically inclined, then definitely have a mechanic check it out. A pre-sale inspection is maybe 100, 120 bucks, so it's money well spent, just so you know what kind of condition the car's in before you take it over.
And have you ever bought a car that's out of state, maybe not in the same state as you? Have you had to send somebody else to look at a car for you before?
I have not. All of the purchases have been here locally, so I usually get eyes on them myself.
Okay, we'll go over that process, you guys. We'll talk about how a TC can help you through that process of buying a vehicle out of the state as well. So we've got our reports and inspections. That's going to be Carfax. That's going to be sending a mechanic. That's going to be looking at any of the records that they have from going to the dealership. Sometimes people save those records. How often have they gone and gotten the oil changed? Carfax actually sometimes reports those things because the dealership also reports those things. After that, you guys are going to get your documents prepared. And I'm going to give you guys these documents down in the description of this video. So doc prep and signature of those documents, making sure that everything gets notarized, you guys. That's another thing that top tier TCs can help you with. And then from there, interestingly enough, there are some virtual escrow companies that you can search for online that you can use as an escrow company for this type of transaction. So if you use that virtual escrow company, you can put the funds that you want, whether it's a down payment or just a deposit, whatever you decide, you're going to be able to put those funds into an escrow account, and your TC can also help you with that process too. Lastly, in these last sections here, we're going to figure out insurance. You guys, insurance is so important. People ask this question all the time when they're buying a vehicle. What happens to the car? Does the registration get transferred? Does the insurance go into your name? What's the process? Well, I will tell you, you don't really need to know any of that because all my top tier TC trained certified TCs will know that. They're going to be able to help you with that process. But if you're curious, the insurance does have to have the seller's name on it. The seller will stay on and hold some kind of vicarious liability. So that is something you want to talk about with your seller, or you as a buyer. It's something interesting for you to know that the seller will stay on the insurance. And then from there, the insurance is going to be replaced with the existing policy. You're going to replace that existing policy that's in place right now when you buy it. And from there, you're going to go and change that insurance over into your name. So after we've got insurance, then we get the login. Interestingly enough, not every vehicle has a login for the loan. So if you have an underlying loan and you don't have a login and you're like, how am I going to give this over to somebody? Well, you don't need to worry because a top tier TC will figure it out. This is going to be my answer for everything, right? But if you are worried about it, you're going to go ahead and figure out how you can transfer the information for your banking information over to that new buyer as a seller. Or you're going to figure out how they can call in every single month and you can double check that it's been paid every single month. There aren't really servicers in place. So that's the one thing I haven't found is a servicer that'll do vehicles. That would probably solve a lot of our problems if we could find a third-party servicer. But what I've found is that usually the vehicles that you buy have their own servicing. Whatever loan you're getting it through, they have their own servicer. Whether they have a login and a dashboard for that is another thing. But like GM Financial, if you bought a car from GM, they have their own servicing. It's not a third party, it's them directly. So getting the login information, changing that information over with them is super easy. But when you don't have that, it gets a little bit tricky. Top tier TC can help you. So once you get that login, you're gonna update the info in that dashboard. Just like if you were to buy a house, you'd update all the information within the login dashboard. And then you'll go forward with transferring and doing the registration in the new state. So I like to do this process first, this login and updating the information, because it's your first chance to tell the lender that the vehicle might be registered in a new state soon. So once you get it transferred and you get it registered, keep in mind the registration stays in the seller's name because that's who's associated with the lien holder. They do not technically have a title to that vehicle. It's an executory contract, we call that, where the deed doesn't transfer or the title doesn't transfer until the loan is paid off. So you're gonna keep that registration in the seller's name. We're gonna talk about the documents to get that happen in just a second.
I want to cut in here while we're making this video and let you know that we have the Squad Up Summit coming up. Go to squadupsummit.com to join. I'm going to tell you why you should be coming. You should be coming in and learning creative finance, creative deal structure, creative lending, creative paperwork, all the things that creative finance is changing the game with. My community is coming out. Subto, Astro, Gator, Vina Jetty's community, top tier transaction coordinators are coming out. All the people that do the creative finance paperwork, yeah, you're gonna meet them there. So if you feel like you're an island out there, like maybe you've read this book, right? You've read Wealth Without Cash. You're like, okay, what next? Cool. Well, now you know what you can do. You know what's possible. But who's going to help you get through it? You've got to meet some of my leaders in the community, and the best place to meet them is at the Squad Up Summit, April 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Orlando. I want to see you there. I'll be out there hanging out, some of the best speakers. I'm going to be the main real estate speaker. Jamil's going to be the main real estate speaker. We'll have Vina Jetty and some other people, but it's actually going to have a lot less speakers than most events. While everybody else is trying to cram speakers and give you way too much information, we're going to be building your business live. We're going to be giving you homework right there live. We're going to be guiding you through it, so when you walk away, you've actually built something, you've done something, and you've squad up with powerful leaders in my community that we've been building for years. Go to squadupsummit.com. I can't wait to see you April 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Orlando. Get back to the video.
Now, let's talk about what your TC does. So we're gonna go over to what a TC does. The TC is gonna collect all your documents. So once you've got all your reports, your inspections, you've got your document prep and everything signed, they're gonna double check that it's been notarized, and they're gonna collect these documents and keep them organized for you, because obviously not everybody stays as organized as a TC, and it's great to have that person on your team so you're not losing documents at any point in time. Next, you're gonna have them help you schedule inspections in case you didn't get any of this stuff done up front, in case there's any final inspections, in case you want somebody else to drive the vehicle. Maybe you're out of state. Maybe that TC you're using is in that same state. Maybe they can go and drive the vehicle. Whatever it may be, this TC can be your assistant through the whole process. They're gonna obtain those reports, once again, collect them and keep them organized. They'll communicate with escrow, they'll communicate with the seller, the buyer, every party involved. The mechanic that goes and looks at it, anybody involved in the transaction, that TC is gonna keep communication with them on point. Next, they're gonna help with securing insurance. So we talked about that complicated insurance process. They're gonna help find you an insurance agent for the area that you live in, or they're gonna communicate with your existing insurance agent and tell them the process of what we use for these types of transactions. They're gonna also verify your login details. They'll log into that portal and they'll say, yep, the loan looks current, everything looks good, and they may even help you transfer over your information, change the communication methods to your email, change the phone number, and change the address within that dashboard. Just depends on the TC that you hire. Also, super, super important, you guys. Every MVD across the states is different. Their process for transferring these vehicles is different. So you wanna make sure your TC, or yourself if you don't have a TC, verifies what that process looks like for this type of purchase in your state. That means you need a power of attorney for each state that the vehicle is gonna be in, whether it's moving from state to state or if it's just staying in the one state, you'll need a power of attorney specifically for that state. And I'll go through those docs in just a second. They're also gonna verify that if there's any security agreements that that MVD specifically needs, that gets transferred also in the way that the MVD needs to see it, so you can do this in a good way that doesn't create confusion for the people that work at the MVD. Because remember, they don't do things like this every single day. So your TC is willing to go and do that cumbersome process and call the MVD and go through that process for you. Now, let's talk about the docs I'm gonna give you today. Documents you're gonna see are gonna be a lease option contract. Yes, a lease option, guys. Because guess what? It's not technically a sale. The lien is staying in place. Everything's staying in place as it would according to the lender. So you're gonna fill out a lease option agreement. This gives you as the buyer valid right to have this vehicle in your possession. So you're gonna have a lease option agreement. You're gonna keep this with you in the vehicle at all points in time. You'll also have a limited power of attorney, which is a general power of attorney that Pace Morby's attorney drafted for Arizona purposes, but it should be pretty good and pretty general for everywhere. On top of that, I want a state-specific power of attorney for each state that the vehicle is going to reside in. So if it came from Arizona, it went to Montana, or if it came from Montana, it went to Arizona, I want a POA for Montana, and I want a POA for Arizona. Lastly, we're gonna have an assignment of insurance proceeds. This is if the existing insurance is still in place and anything occurs, you could have added your name to that existing insurance and you could get that insurance proceeds if you ever have an accident assigned to you. Now, speaking of insurance, another thing that you need to note is that if you have, like in this case, I'll show you guys the docs for this, you have more value than what, say, Kelley Blue Book would say it is. Or if you have a seller carry portion to it, where there's equity that the seller is carrying in place, like this transaction that we'll talk about, then you're going to want to make sure you have not only regular insurance for the underlying loan, but gap insurance for the additional value. Next, we'll have the release authorization. So we have the lender and the insurance. This is basically saying, hey, lender, hey, insurance company, any information this buyer needs, we're not gonna call them the buyer, but any information this person needs that I have designated, they can get it. You can release it to them. I give you authorization. The last one is that change of address form. These are really only gonna be used if you have to manually do anything. When you go into a dashboard, like if you get that login and you go into the dashboard, all of this is gonna be done. You're gonna change the address, you're gonna change your phone number, you're gonna change your contact information, and you won't need any of these manual forms. But these are good backups to have in case you can't do that through the online dashboard. Now, next, what I think we should talk about is why buy a vehicle this way and how do the terms work for buying a vehicle to use it for Turo?
All right, guys. My name is Angelo, and today I am taking over Pace's Model X and adding it to our Turo fleet. Me and my partner Abraham Gray have a fleet on Turo, and I'm going to go over why we're basically buying this car and what we plan on doing with it. So when you're buying a car for Turo, the first thing you want to do is run a Carfax. You're checking the history, making sure what type of accident it's been in, if there's any accidents that's been reported, making sure it's a clean title. You can't list a car that's branded or salvage titled. So you want to make sure that you're buying something that's clean, that's eligible for Turo. And you're also wanting to check the Carfax for recalls. If a car has a recall, it can't be listed on Turo until that recall is remedied. So that's a very important thing to look for, because you don't want to purchase a car and then be stuck, not be able to list it and make money on it. So those are the three things I check for via the Carfax. Next, I go to mechanical inspection. I'm looking for any type of leaks, any type of crazy noises. I check the tires to make sure the tread depth is good. These are just things that I'm looking for that potentially need replacement before it actually gets listed, to make sure you have a safe car that's going on Turo and in a renter's hands. So looking at mechanically, cosmetically, if there's any body work or any nicks or scratches or dents or anything that could be cleaned up to make sure the car is looking the best possible. Like I said, tires and brakes, those are the things that get used the most and abused the most. So you want to make sure either the tires are good or you're replacing tires before you get it listed. The next thing I look for is the terms. So what kind of payment are we taking on? Is there a spread? What type of spread is it? With the Model X, we're estimating it's going to be doing between $1,500 to $2,500 a month. So with the current payment in place, after insurance and expenses, it represents a cash flow of somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 per month. So definitely want to keep the cash flow above $500. I don't think anything less than $500 is worth it on Turo. So those are the things I'm looking for as far as the terms and the payments. It's just too much risk. Too much risk for a little bit of reward. Between car washes, deliveries and stuff like that, 500 or more is like where the minimum is for myself in adding something to my fleet. Otherwise, it's just not worth it for me. The next thing I'm doing is I'm doing a Turo assessment. So want to look at the competition. You want to see how many cars of that same model, similar year, similar trim line is in your area. If you're in an area and there's 10 Model X's within a 3-mile radius, there's a good chance your car is going to sit, or you're going to have to price it very competitively, which could obviously kill the spread that you're going to make on a monthly basis. So very important to look at what the competition in the area looks like before. I know before buying this, I did a preliminary look, and we're going to be the only Model X within about a 10-mile radius. So I think we're going to have a very competitive advantage there, because there's not going to be any Model X's within 10 miles from us. Location, I'm about 15 minutes away from the airport. Majority of the business that we do is airport deliveries. So checking out the location, seeing what other vehicles are in that area, the proximity, the airport and the deliveries. Obviously you don't want to do airport deliveries, if you're 30 miles away from the airport, that's just not gonna work. It's gonna kill your time. You're not gonna make money. You're spending money on gas, adding miles to your car. So it's just not worth it if the location is, significantly far from the airport. And the last thing on the Turo assessment is fleet diversification. Don't want to have 10 of the same cars, right? I wouldn't add another Model X if I had 4 already. One recall, Turo delists your car the moment it's been recalled. So if that happens, you have 4 cars that are on the sideline now that aren't making money, that aren't getting rented. So you want to make sure you're diversifying your fleet. So you don't want to get stuck in a situation where all your cars get pulled off or something like that happens. So those are the things I look for when purchasing a vehicle for Turo.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you talked about additional costs. So I know you're saying, hey, we have insurance on top of this, but what about, you talked about washes, right? Do you have like wash subscriptions, like where you just drive them through a car wash that you have a subscription to for each car, or what do you do?
Yeah, so I have a fleet account with Cobblestone. So they're a chain throughout the city here. So it's, I want to say like 18 or 20 bucks per car. And that gives you unlimited car washes. So we can get them ready for each renter once they're ready.
And so you account for that in your underwriting? Yeah. You're saying, hey, that's an additional $18. Right. The other thing that I've heard of, and you're only in Arizona, but when people transfer cars out of state, there's also taxes that are paid on the vehicle along with your registration. So you pay for registration and you pay for taxes. And so those are all things that you would probably consider in your underwriting.
Absolutely, definitely. Like I mentioned earlier, I haven't moved a car from another state to here, so that's definitely something you want to consider if you're in that situation. But title, tags, taxes, any minor things like tires and stuff like that, these are all expenses that you're going to have before you even get the car listed. So you want to make sure you're documenting all of that and making sure it's not going to kill the bottom line.
And how can people get a hold of you?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Angelo Pena. The O is a 0. Check me out there.
That's all you have?
It's short and sweet.
That was so simple.
So we like to keep it.
What about when you're managing your Turo fleet? Are you at a point now where you make enough money you could have somebody helping you, or are you primarily doing it all yourself?
Yeah, so I have a team. Part of my strategy too is I have cars spread out throughout the city. So some cars are at one of my business. Some other cars are at my sister's house. I actually pay her monthly to get cars ready and in and out and turned over. And then some of my other kids, my kids and my fiance helps me as well. So small team that helps. But yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, right now this is going to be car number 21. So, it'd be pretty difficult if it was just me running cars around. I just wouldn't be able to do it. You definitely have to have a team to manage this amount of cars.
Could you make a full-time living on a Turo fleet?
Definitely.
Like people could quit their job?
I think so, absolutely.
What kind of money could somebody make with like 10 cars on average?
With 10, it depends on the car. But like I said, I'm shooting for a minimum of 500 spread, but that's like bare minimum. We have Tahoes and minivans that are profiting between $1,500 to $2,000 a month, depending on the season. Turo is very seasonal. So obviously in the summer times here in Arizona, everything just kind of dries up and it's just slow. But fall through spring is peak season, and come February through May, we're gonna, that's when we make majority of our money.
Wow.
I had a question. So with houses, right? Because I only do houses. When you're renting a house, there's a CapEx. Like you figure 10 or 15 or 20% that you're going to have to, fix roofs or air condition, or just, when people move out. Is there like a formula you use at all for CapEx or whatever you want to, a war chest for a Turo fleet for cars?
So as far as like CapEx, I wouldn't say there's a formula that I've calculated. What I've seen though is not one of my cars is returning less than a 35% ROI. So that's kind of where that $500 amount comes in. Very similar to CapEx, I guess. Like I said, my bare minimum is a $500 spread up per car.
And your underwriting, including like if you're paying your sister, if you're paying somebody to keep the cars, if you're paying somebody to turn those cars over, you're including that in all of your ROI.
Yeah, definitely. The one at my business, fortunately, they're kind of on the clock through a different company. So If it's slow, I'll just have them run out, take pictures. And sometimes it's just a matter of them just taking pictures. They don't have to wash it or anything like that. But yeah, that's something you definitely want to account for because it is an expense.
So I have another question. So it seems like with having this Turo fleet, it'd be really cool if you could buy like an oil change place or a car wash place or some sort of like auto body shop or something like that. Have you thought about buying some sort of business? Now you can do a Turo fleet out of there. Is that like the next step, or are you kind of good with just having it the way you have it now?
Yeah, great question. So that's actually the next, the plan in what we're doing, the next step in the plan. I am looking for an automotive business that can give us synergies on costs as far as repairs, labor hours too, because now I can replace the part-time employees that I have with the full-time employees, like at a shop per se. We hire an extra detailer or a shop hand or something like that, can turn over cars, get pictures and all that stuff done. So absolutely, that's the next step. And I think that's, the bigger picture is having a business that pairs with it. The body shop is actually ideal. So if you think about a body shop, when someone's in a collision, they're without a car for a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks, sometimes even months, waiting on parts or whatever the case may be, the insurance. So most body shops right now are sending their customers down the street to Enterprise or Hertz or the bigger rental car companies. So having an in-house fleet for an auto body shop, I think would be a great complement to the Turo business, not just for Turo, but now private rentals to auto body customers that need a car rental. So
are there any deals that are pending that you're working on right now to buy, or is this something just a plan for the future?
No, there's deals in the pipeline. I'm actively searching. So we have an LOI on a particular body shop. We're just kind of working through the negotiations right now. So that's one specific deal, but I'm still marketing to transportation companies, mechanical repair, auto body shop, anything that could have some type of synergy for the Turo fleet.
All right, okay, guys, so here's what we're gonna do in part 2. Make sure you guys follow Angelo. Make sure you guys go down in the description below. We're gonna give you guys the paperwork. If you are a top tier transaction coordinator already in Molly's community of the top tier TCs, then the videos on how to fill the paperwork out and more in-depth coaching is involved there. So go over there, take a look over there. And if you want to become a top tier TC, click in the description down below. You guys can get over there and be underneath Molly's tutelage. I've been looking for a time to use that word, and today it came up. So you can be underneath Molly's tutelage, which will be great. And in video number 2, what we're gonna do is we're gonna break down the terms of this deal. We're gonna record Molly and Angelo going through the paperwork and just kind of doing a little bit of B-roll, and we'll give you guys the paperwork over there as well. So see you on the next video.